My name is Sarah Lowry. I'm 26, live in Seattle, work as an interface designer, and have never believed in religion. I called myself an agnostic with an anxiety disorder, just in case I wasn't thinking about God. Neither for nor against. I just try not to think. Everything changed on April 6th at 3:12 a.m. I couldn't breathe. Not metaphorically. My windpipe was blocked, an allergic reaction that no one could have predicted. In a matter of seconds, my mind went deep into the darkness, and what I saw next shattered my entire world. First, there was a viscous void, not darkness, but emptiness. Thick, sticky like tar. I wasn't falling, I wasn't flying, I was drowning. And the deeper I sank, the louder the sound became. Not a scream, not a voice, but a hum, like 1,000 voices praying, or they cry. And then a flash. I found myself on a flat plain under a black sky. No stars, no moon. Only ash-gray figures walking in one direction. They were bent and broken, but they moved without stopping. As I stood there, they walked through me, oblivious as if I were air. And then he appeared. He wasn't what they painted him to be. No beard, no cross. The light didn't come from him. It shattered against him. He was like a wall of truth against which illusions break. He looked at me, and I felt uneasy. "Sarah," he said, "I've been calling you for a long time. Where am I? Between. You're dead, but not completely. There's a reason you're here." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't feel the body. But I felt ashamed. Not for anything specific. For everything. For lying. For fear. For indifference. And worst of all, for indifference to the good. "Look at their hands," he said. I turned around. Everyone who passed by had a mark on the back of their hand, burned like a scar. The letter M. But not just a letter. It moved, pulsed, as if it were alive. "What is it?" I whispered. "It's the mark of silence." Silence? Yes. Those who knew the truth, but chose to remain silent. Who heard my call but looked away. This isn't Kara. This is the trail of choice. And that mark is now multiplying in the world of the living. I didn't know what to say. I remembered everything. How many times I had felt that something was wrong, but remained in silence. When she didn't intercede. When I chose comfort over truth. "Sarah, you got the time," he said. "Few return. But you must choose to return, knowing that you are now a witness. Or stay. Among those who have been silent for too long." I fell to my knees. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I didn't know which was more frightening, to go back or stay. If I come back, what should I do? He came closer. His gaze went right through me. "Tell me, even if they laugh at you, even if it costs you everything, the placemark is not set by the system, not a beast. And the choice of the heart." I woke up in intensive care. There's fire in my chest. My head is silent. But in the palm of your hand, for a moment, I saw a thin, white trail, as if burned by air, in the form of M. And I knew this was the beginning. I've been in my bed for a week now. The doctors said that my resurrection was a medical miracle. I didn't believe in miracles before. But now I was afraid at what price these miracles are given. It wasn't like that. The world has become deaf. Even the city was muffled, as if someone was holding my reality behind glass. People were talking, laughing, buying coffee, discussing cryptocurrency rates, and I saw the marks on their hands. The weak ones first. Almost invisible. Lines that seemed to glow from within, like hot metal burns. Some had simple outlines. Others already have full signs. I didn't know what to do with it. I told my friend, Joan. We've been friends since university. She was always spiritual, though she never claimed to be a believer. "Sarah, are you sure these aren't side effects? You were in hypoxic shock, which can cause hallucinations." I took her hand, squeezed it. She looked directly at the mark, pulsing on her palm as if a second heart was beating under her skin. "Joan," I whispered. "You have it." "What?" "Placemark. You knew the truth existed, but you choose to live as if it didn't exist. You can feel it. You always did." She jerked her hand away. "You're scaring me, Sarah." I didn't blame her. I was scaring myself. The next day, when I woke up, I saw a strange notification on my laptop screen. It wasn't from instant messengers. Not a single app. Just lettering on a black background. He who is silent swears. There was a single button under it. I understand. But I didn't press it. I felt that there was more to it than that. As if the choice to click itself was a test. It was as if someone or something was watching. Later, I went outside. And for the first time, I noticed how many people wore gloves, even in warm weather. I wouldn't have noticed it before. But now, everything now seemed to be part of an invisible suppression system. I met a woman outside the church. Her name was Mara. She was selling handmade candles, but there was something about her face, distorted. When I asked her if she believed in God, she said, "God? He's been quarantined for a long time. Now we only say what is allowed. Silence is our currency." I tried to leave, but she handed me a candle, a white one, wrapped in a black ribbon with the same letter on it. As if she knew. As if to remind you. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I was half asleep when I saw Jesus, but not like the first time. His face was sad. His eyes were tired beyond measure. He stood at the door, knocking, but no one answered. People inside the house were praying, singing, and kissing Bibles, but they didn't open them. They didn't hear. Or they pretended not to hear. And they all had the M mark on their hands. When I woke up, I realized that this letter is not just a symbol of silence. This is the sigil of rejection. Admission of guilt to those who considered themselves innocent. And then I took the first step. I opened my laptop and created a blank page. I wrote a headline above it. I saw the mark. We all have it. I knew that by writing this, I would never be able to return to the normal world again. But I also knew I had no choice now. Or I join those who walk in silence. The day after I started writing, I started having dreams. Not dreams messages. I could tell them apart by one strange feature. In these dreams, there was no sound at all, as if reality were enclosed in a vacuum. People were talking, lips moving, but no sound. Instead of words, ash flew out of their mouths. At first, it just seemed weird. But in the dream that separated night and morning, I saw a man. He was dressed in white, with his face hidden under a veil, like in paintings of Elijah or Moses. He came up to me, and instead of a mouth, he had a deep crack filled with light. He radiated warmth, but also terror. "You speak, but can anyone hear you?" he didn't say. The phrase popped up right in my head, as if embedded in a thought. "I'm trying," I said, "but they think I'm crazy." "Then you are closer to the truth than those who are being listened to." Then he held out his hand. On his palm is not an M, but a mirror image of it. I didn't know what that meant, but it felt like he'd come from a different direction, a place where words didn't burn, but lived. And he added, "The label is given to those who agree to remain silent. You don't have to force the tag to be placed. This is a voluntary agreement. Even if you think you didn't choose." When I woke up, my whole apartment smelled like something burnt. I checked the stove. Candles. Sockets. Everything was turned off. But the smell of burnt paper hung in the air. I ran to my laptop and the document was gone. Instead, only one line flashed on the screen. M is not just a sign. It's a language you agree to forget. I was trembling. Not out of fear. From something more ancient. From knowing that I speak a language that no longer exists. That people now pray in the language of ashes. I went out into the street, among people whose hands were covered with gloves and band-aids. Mechanical faces that made it impossible to tell if they remembered anything more than bank passwords. And then I saw her. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, was standing outside a bookstore window. She was looking at the Bible. A real one. Not electronic. I stepped closer. There was no mark on her arm. She turned around. And she whispered, "He's still around." While someone is talking. She disappeared into the crowd. I returned home in silence. One thought burned in my mind. In this world of ashen words, only the voice, the true voice, can break the marks. But how many of us are left? I didn't find the information on the internet. Not in books. And in the rustle of dreams. A map that someone had scribbled in a notebook was lying on my windowsill, I couldn't remember how it got there. There were only 3 words on it. The gate. Emptiness. Clay. Everything else is a chaos of lines, arrows, and bloodstains. I didn't know where I was going, but I was driving. Trains were replaced by buses, then minibuses. The last leg was on foot through the forest, where there were no birds or wind. Only silence, like the silence of the depths where the sound died. And then a building appeared in front of me. Old, dilapidated, like an abandoned monastery. No characters are shown at the input. Just a black iron door. There are handprints on it. Hundreds, thousands. As if everyone who came here left not only a trace, but also a part of themselves. I was met by a man in gray, without a name. He didn't ask me why I was here. Just said, "If you've heard the call, then you're already a mark." But not printing yet. "What does that mean?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just handed me an old notebook. In it, phrases torn out, torn off, as if from a flowing consciousness. Clay remembers the shape before the potter. The mark is a vow of silence taken without words. Faith said without pain is already a lie. Some don't come here. They're coming back. Jesus didn't ask, he showed. Only the demon offers a choice. We don't die anymore. We're burning slowly alive. She said. I was praying and all I heard was my own echo. I felt a shiver run through my fingers. This place didn't heal. It opened. Like a scalpel ripping open flesh to find the tumor we've been calling the soul for years. I was shown into a stone room with words written on the walls. Each word is a name. And opposite each one is a date. No surnames. Only the names burned out like fire. There was a ritual. I do not know how to describe it. It wasn't a baptism. It was a breakup. It was as if someone had taken a thread out of my body that I wasn't even aware of and shown me that a knot of silence had been imposed on it. Do you want to speak the truth? He asked. I nodded. Then prepare to be cursed by everyone you love. He gave me a mirror to say goodbye to. The usual one. But when I looked into it, I didn't see my mark. For the first time in all this time, the skin of the palm was clean. But the face. My face wasn't mine. It was older. Tired. But there was life in his eyes, something that no symbol could replace. I left before sunrise. Through the woods, where sounds reappeared, rustling sounds, wind breathing, even birdsong. But now every sound was sharp as a needle, as if the world had heard me and knew I was back, but not like this anymore. The mark was gone from his skin, but it remained in the memory of others. I knew they'd be looking for me now. I thought I was gone. That she'd shed everything, the fear, the question, the mark. But this is not the truth. Truth does not forget those who have seen it once. After returning to the city, I lived in a state that can be called ghostly wakefulness. People seemed like shadows to me. I could hear them talking, laughing, praying, but everything was distorted, as if they were walking through water. I couldn't feel time anymore. It no longer flowed. It became a loop, as if I was returning again and again to the moment when Jesus took my hand. I tried to find someone who had experienced something similar. But in response, only silence or strange glances. Some of them looked away, as if they sensed that I was different. But one day, at a bus stop early in the morning in the cold air, a piece of newspaper fell at my feet. The headline was the usual one about politics. But at the bottom is a tiny sign, as if written in someone else's hand. I see a letter that you don't wear anymore. We are waiting for you. Nameless Lane, midnight. It wasn't an invitation. It was recognition. I came. The alley was located between 2 buildings whose walls were covered with old advertisements and layers of time. It led to a dungeon covered by a rickety door. No lights. Mute. Still, they were inside. 4 of them. A man in a black cloak, a woman with white eyes, a teenager with palms covered in red threads, and an old man who looked as if he had lived 100 lifetimes but left no trace in any of them. They didn't ask who I was. They knew. You're a former mark, the man said. It's rare. What is the symbol? What does it mean? Why did it disappear from my palm? I couldn't keep quiet any longer. The woman with the white eyes came closer. There was still an M on her arm, but threads were running from inside it, as if it were alive, as if the mark was pulsing. M is not for Placemark, not for Maria, and not for the Messiah, she said. This is silence. Mute. Seal. Imprinting. I remembered the words of Jesus. His warning. His gaze. The Pope, the ruler, the preacher, they all have this label. But not because they are given power. It's because they're told to keep quiet. The old man spoke for the first time. His voice was hoarse, like rust on metal. Everyone who bears this mark has once sworn not to speak the truth. Not out loud. Not mentally. It's not just a sign. It's a contract. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck prickle. Contract with whom? With the shadow standing behind the throne, the teenager replied. The one who whispered to Cain. With one who was neither fallen nor saved. With what we mistakenly call absence. They showed me the books. Old, partially burned out buildings. In one of them was an image of a hand with an M, from which mouths came out. Mouths without faces that speak at the same time. All the words were different, but the meaning was the same. Believe in the world. Not the truth. To the world. Otherwise war. I realized then that the mark is not a gift. It is a seal. Like a closed coffin in which the truth is placed. You broke the seal, the man in black said. They'll feel you now. And if they don't kill you, they'll make you put it back on. Who is they? The white-eyed woman smiled. Those who preach love without sacrifice. Peace without trial. Forgiveness without remorse. I remembered the face of a pastor I had once listened to with admiration. His hands. On them, I could clearly see the same M burned into my skin. At the time, I thought it was a birthmark. Now I knew. But what about next? I whispered. The old man came right up to me. His eyes were a dead blue. Now you must speak. Even if you talk to nothing. Because silence is the signature. They gave me a paper. The words on it were scratched out like claws. Just one message. As long as you're talking, you're not theirs. As long as you don't say anything, you're not yourself anymore. I haven't been home since that night. I realized that the one who had returned from death was not the one who had entered it. And the world didn't want to pretend it didn't notice anymore. I wandered the streets like a lost piece of the old system. Passers-by, shop windows, candles in churches. They were praying, but it wasn't the words I heard. It was the silence behind the words. Some were praying to God. Some of them tell themselves. But most people didn't care. And it was among these all the same that I first saw them. I entered a small temple in an area where the houses were bowed like old men. There was an evening of prayers. Not loud. More likely muffled. They sang. But each verse is like a soul without a body. Suddenly I saw a woman. A young one. About 30 years old. Her hands were gloved, but there was something moving under the cloth. I felt familiar. What I already felt in those who were marked M. I stepped closer. You're wearing it. She looked at me. Her pupils were empty, not angry, not malevolent, just empty. It is as if the soul has left, leaving the body to work according to instructions. I tried to take it off, she whispered. Many years ago. But she came back. And now I'm not talking. Even in my sleep. I sat down next to him. She didn't resist. Meanwhile, a sermon was being preached in the church. The pastor talked about grace, love, and acceptance. But every word he said sounded like a dream in my head. Just don't get to the point. Don't talk about the trial. Just don't talk about sin. Don't talk about fire. The woman continued. We are sad. There are thousands of us. Someone on the stage. Someone in the shadows. We tried to break the seal. But when you speak, the system hears them. It comes in dreams, in the radio, in the voices of children. It's convincing. She keeps it quiet. And then the placemark is returned. I asked, already knowing the answer. One who speaks for the light, but hides in its shadow. I was looking at the woman. And suddenly I realized, sad ones are not just victims. These are warnings. Live reminders that trying to break out is not freedom. But how do you live? Nothing. I just didn't die. And then I felt it. She really wasn't alive. No pain, no joy, everything was burned out. And that scorched void was the mark itself. I left the church late at night. Cool air and silence again. But in the distance, behind the houses, I saw a silhouette. Tall. Man. On his arm is a mark that glows red. He was looking at me. Then I realized they knew I'd broken the seal. And now I'm the target. I walked far away from the church, not thinking where I was going. The streets were getting darker, as if the city wasn't a place, but a creature that was slowly closing its eyes. The air was heavy and dense. The usual sounds, cars passing, dogs barking were gone, as if someone had turned off the whole world, leaving only me and him. The shadow I'd seen earlier was following me, not getting any closer, but not lagging behind either. I turned into an alley, hoping to get lost. And suddenly, the footsteps stopped. And in the complete silence, a voice rang out. You broke the seal. Do you think that makes you free? I turned around. No one. But the voice didn't disappear. It wasn't in my ears. It was inside me. Your freedom is an illusion. Your struggle is their food. Every awakening you see is already predicted. Already accounted for. Already sold out. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him everywhere. As if the air itself had become sentient. My voice was hoarse, like a scream that wasn't there. I don't have a name. I wear them all. I was in the songs you listen to. In the words of pastors who spoke about charity. In advertising, in prayer, in the mirror. I was your faith, as long as you believed in the image, not the truth. I suddenly remembered a dream. One of the ones I forgot when I got back. I was standing on a field of gold, with a throne in the center. On it is a face that shines like the sun. People crawled up to him, kissed his feet, and the words came out of their mouths, Jesus. But the closer I got, the more I realized that the face on the throne did not change, but reflected their fear. It wasn't the Savior. It was a mirror. Are you showing them what they want? Not at all. I let them choose. I am the consequence, not the reason. You're not a god. I don't have to be him. I should be the one you don't notice. I fell to my knees. My head was buzzing and my heart was pounding. I thought I was going to die again. But instead, I remembered. That moment there on death's doorstep, when Jesus held my hand. He said, the mark is not on the flesh. The label is an agreement. Those who agree are already wearing it. Who rejected it is already mine. And then, in the midst of my horror, I said aloud, I disagree. Silence. The wind hit me hard in the chest, as if space had recoiled of its own accord. The shadow disappeared. The alley came back to life. Sounds of the city close again. But I knew he was still here. Always here. In every yes that wasn't asked. In every amen that is not spoken from the heart. I stepped out into the lamplight, shivering. But not broken. He has no name. But I have a voice now. And the next time someone tells me, it's just a tradition. It's just security. It's just a new way of living. Do you know exactly whose voice you're talking about? From that night on, I couldn't look at people the way I used to. I noticed that many people had the same line forming on their hands and wrists, like barely noticeable burns. I couldn't see it with my eyes, but I could feel it, like a scar in the air between us. Sometimes I saw them fiddling with their wrists, as if they were itching, or they hold their hand like they're hiding something. In the metro, in the church, in the supermarket, even my sister Martha. I knew it wasn't a sign of the flesh. This is a sign of agreement. Agreeing to a lie. Consent to a system that says, you are nothing without us. Peace with the spiritual silence in which God is no longer heard. I started writing it down. Go to Notepad. Phrases, looks, and strange coincidences. People who wore the same look I'd seen in shadow. Cold, watching, but not alive. My work at the clinic was no longer routine. Once I touched a patient, and for a split second I heard her inner voice, as if the radio had broken through the ether. I know he is not God, but if I am given food, let him be. He is not Jesus, but he offers security. Coziness. It's better to be branded than to be nothing. It wasn't an obsession. It was a concession. People weren't fighting anymore. It was easier for them to give up. One evening I received a strange letter. It wasn't signed. Just an envelope, no stamp. Inside, a list with a single offer. You see us. We've been waiting for you. Meet me at the old vault midnight. I thought it was a trap. But my heart sank, just as it did when I was standing in front of Jesus, on the edge between light and eternity. This feeling cannot be faked. At midnight, I was standing in front of a building that had long been considered abandoned. It was once a library, now a ghost of memory. I went in. There were people there. 7 people. Different ages, different faces. But there is the same pain in their looks. We didn't say names. Only stories. One is a former IT guy who saw the system embed spiritual code in interfaces. The other is a girl who came out of a clinic where dreams were treated. An old man is a pastor who was exiled after his sermons became too personal. They all saw the same label. They all thwarted it, not by knowledge, but by decision. They were not enlightened, they chose. I asked, what about now? Are we some kind of resistance? One of them, named Laurent, answered, we are not the resistance. We are the witnesses. Because when the harvest begins, they won't ask who you were. They will ask, have you seen, and are you still blind? And then I understood. I'm not alone. And the worst part is not even the label. The worst part is that more and more people don't even want to get rid of it. They call it a blessing. The world. A fear vaccine. But I know it's an agreement. Seal of emptiness. Martha has always been the opposite of me. Where I doubted, she built. Where I prayed, it worked. Sister. Older. We weren't close, but something always connected us, an invisible thread of the past, fear, and shared pain. After the revelation, I kept avoiding talking to her. I saw her eyes, quiet and distant. She didn't wear the mark on her skin, but I could feel her inside. And then one evening I made up my mind. We were sitting in her kitchen, in a small 5th-floor apartment that smelled of vanilla and coffee and something inexorably foreign. Do you know anything about the embark? She wasn't surprised. She just lowered her eyes. She was silent for a long time. And then she said, yes, I chose her. Consciously. Released. And I'm at ease. At that moment, I felt the air change. Time became as thick as honey. Words are slower. The refrigerator sounds louder. I looked at her as if she were a dying person who hadn't yet realized that she was dead. You don't understand what this is. No, you don't understand, she interrupted. You cling to images. For the old ones. And he suggested the way. Without guilt. No pain. Without your fear. I had barely breathed. Are you talking about Jesus? She smiled. But it was a stranger's smile. Not at all. I'm talking about someone who will come on his behalf. But it will be better. Fairer. Present. It is called differently. But you know who it is. I wanted to get up. To leave. To scream. But my legs wouldn't work. It was as if she was trapped instead of sitting in a chair. This is the final phase, a voice inside me suddenly said. It's not my voice. But not a stranger either. It was like the sound of a bell that breaks dreams. And I saw it. A shadow. Just barely appeared on her wrist. A symbol similar to the Latin, but broken, as if made of bones. It throbbed. He was alive. And then I realized. The label grows from the inside out. First as consent. Then as an attachment. And in the final as a merge. I touched her arm. Softly. Without hate. Martha, it's not him. This is not Jesus. It's not light. This is a fake. You know. She looked me in the eye. For the first time she looked doubtful. Tiny. Like a crack in glass. It was then that I heard a creaking sound in the walls. It was like the house groaned. And I knew he knew I was here. We didn't finish. I left without saying goodbye. Just left a note. When you want to remember where the light is, just say its name. Real name. Not what you were given. And you'll see. The next day I found out that Martha had disappeared. The door was locked from the inside. But there was no one inside. Just a faint smell of incense and ash on the windowsill. When I returned from those interworld journeys, I carried with me not only the weight of what I had seen, but also an unbearable clarity. What Jesus had shown me about the M mark was not just a symbol on my skin, but a key to choosing my whole soul. This mysterious M shone on the hands of millions, and Jesus said that this is not just a sign, but a reflection of inner submission, betrayal that begins with small things. First, accepting the lie, then giving up your own light for the illusion of security and power. It's not just a mark. It's a path that leads to the abyss, to eternal captivity. In this world of noise and deception, many people accept the M without even realizing that they are signing a contract with the one who takes away their freedom. It is a symbol that blurs the light, hides the truth, and silences the conscience. I remember Jesus speaking with a pained voice that was both a warning and a call to fight. They think they're getting protection and blessing, but they're actually selling their soul. M is not just a sign. This is the key to the cage they build for themselves. With this knowledge, I returned to my body, but the world didn't seem the same anymore. The people around them with their smiles, their words were suddenly like ghosts, bearers of marks, prisoners of a choice they didn't even understand. I couldn't keep quiet. My heart was burning with the words that needed to be conveyed. But the fear and incomprehension of the crowd held me down. A fire was burning inside me, and I knew it wasn't just my soul that was at stake, but thousands of others who might still choose light over darkness. And then I heard his voice, soft but immensely strong. Bring the light, even if the path is lonely. Because it is in solitude that faith is born, which is not subject to fear. This lesson was my cross and my salvation. Outside, the world looked at me like I was crazy, but inside I held a truth that shone brighter than any mark, brighter than any fear. The journey was just beginning. My last few minutes out of my body were an endless whirl of images and voices, as if the universe itself were whispering its secrets to me. I stood in front of him, in front of Jesus, and his eyes shone with unspeakable wisdom and sadness at the same time. You've seen a lot, he said, but the most important thing is the choice that everyone makes, whether to accept the light or prefer the dark. The mark M is not just a mark on the skin. It is a symbol of inner agreement with the lie, with the loss of freedom. I felt an uneasy feeling in my chest. Why are so many people going this way? Why doesn't anyone warn you? And then he gave me another perspective. On a world where millions sign this invisible contract every day without realizing the consequences. They're afraid of losing what they think is their own, he said. But the real treasure is freedom of choice and faith in the truth that leads to eternal life. His words rang like bells, echoing in my soul. I was shown how those who dare to reject lies will be cleansed by fire, and how their hearts will shine despite the darkness that shrouds the earth. When I returned to my body, the world around me felt different, heavy, full of hidden meaning and danger. But I knew that my mission now was to be a light in this darkness, to be a voice for those who had not yet lost the ability to hear. I couldn't live like I used to. The truth revealed to me became my cross and my salvation. And even if no one understands me, even if the path is thorny, I will choose the light. Because where there is light, there is no place for the M mark, for fear and betrayal. There is only love, freedom, and eternal life.